Hello, Taylor Elwood here, and welcome to the Sacred Masculine Quest. And today we're going to talk about how to handle rejection and how to not take it so personally. And believe me, this is a topic I really get because I have dealt with a lot of rejection in life, and there have been times where I've taken it really personally, right up to even recent events in my life. The fact of the matter is, rejection hurts and it stings. I know, and a lot of times when we look at rejection, there's usually some trauma there with rejection. There's trauma that is deep in the depth of our experience that causes us to feel so hurt by rejection. And the key thing is to not take it so personally. But it's hard, but that's not easy advice to take. So I want to share with you today how to recognize when you're taking rejection so personally and what you can do to change your relationship with it. And I'm going to share a bit of my own story around rejection because I think it'll be a helpful thing or a helpful story to help you recognize maybe yourself and also recognize how you don't have to take rejection so personally. Now, if you're just joining this video, I'm gonna, go ahead and click subscribe if you're not a subscriber to the channel, and click like if you are, and leave a comment. Let's dialogue about rejection. So, rejection, we're gonna experience rejection in our lives pretty much every day. Um, Rejection can come in many different forms. It can involve you asking a person out on a date, and that person saying no, or that person friend zoning you, making you being like, yeah, you're a nice guy, and I love it to have you as a friend, but I don't want to be with you romantically. I want to be with that guy over there. Okay, I mean, we've all experienced that. I've definitely been that nice guy myself, where there was somebody I really liked, and she kind of liked me, but kind of didn't, and was into somebody else more, and I got to watch as she pursued that person instead because her perception of me was that I was nice to have as a friend, but that I wasn't what she really wanted. So been there, done that. You're going to get rejected at work. You're going to have ideas for your job, or you're going to be doing work, and your manager is going to say to you, "Hey, you didn't do this right, or you didn't do this well." Or if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to have clients that reject you, that or potential clients that reject you. And the key thing you have to do is you have to dust yourself off and get up and keep going. Again, I've been that person where I've done both. I've gotten up and kept going, and I've quit. And when you quit, I mean, sometimes there's good reasons to quit. Sometimes there's good reasons to accept that a rejection is telling you something, and that you either need to change your strategy, or something else along those lines. But sometimes it's equally as important that you stick with what you're doing. So I look at rejection as kind of like a signal in that regards. And sometimes you're going to experience just rejection in other ways at home or at work. And it's going to be one of those things where you kind of have to be, you have to find the strength within yourself to acknowledge that you've been rejected and also not take it so personally. So in my own case, I can say that I have definitely gotten rejected multiple times. I've been rejected by people I wanted to date. I've been rejected. I've experienced rejection at my work. I've experienced rejection as an entrepreneur, and it can be very disheartening. My first real rejection honestly came from my ex stepmom. There had been a period of time where I grew up with her as quote unquote my mom. But once she had kids of her own, she started to change her behavior, and then once some tragic family events occurred around her kids, and she basically ended up really rejecting me, took her anger out on me because of something another family member had done. And in the process, really just made me feel unwanted, unloved, and it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how well I cleaned the house, what good grades I got, anything else along those lines. There was anger there from her, and it had nothing to do with me. But 10-year-old Taylor didn't know that, and so I took it very personally. Later on in my life, I would start to I went through a period of time where I would actually try to date women that I knew would reject me, and my reasoning behind that is, if I know they're gonna reject me, it's gonna hurt less. Let me tell you the truth about that. No, it doesn't hurt less. It hurts just as much as if you take a chance on someone who might not reject you. About the only difference is that I could predict they were gonna reject me because I knew I wasn't the kind of person they wanted to be with. I eventually figured that one out, and I started to date people. But I mean, even when you're in a relationship with somebody, you can get rejected. Your partner might be critical of you. They might nag you about something. They might say you need to step up, or be really critical, or they might reject you in other ways. They might tell you that they don't want to have sex with you, or other things along those lines. And all of these things are just experiences that we have at some time or another. And this is a normal reality of life. We're going to experience rejection sometimes. The key is, how do we handle it? And I'll admit that, I have taken rejection personally, very personally, a lot of the time in my life. I'm not saying I've always done that. There have been times where I've taken it less personally, and it's actually one of the skills that I'm working on right now, because I recognize that that as long as I take rejection personally, that I am going to let that situation and that other person have power over me. And I don't want that kind of power over me. I don't want that kind of situation in hand. So I'm realizing, well, I've got to take it less personally. I had this realization. I've had this realization both around my entrepreneurial work, where I've gotten rejected lots of times, where I've put together workshops and had nobody show up for them, where I've had people, where I've launched books and I've had those books flop, and where I've asked somebody on a date and I've had them say no, not interested, or I've been with somebody and they said I don't want to have sex with you, or I don't want to be with you in that way. And I've had to kind of be I've had those experiences, and it's a hard thing to sit with, because there's a part of me that's saying, like, well, what's wrong with me? What is wrong with me that someone, but there's nothing wrong with me per se. Maybe I'm not to someone else's taste, fair enough. Maybe in certain circumstances there's a need for better communication, better timing, things along those lines, fair enough. But at the end of the day, and really come to recognize this, at the end of the day, more often than not, 9 times out of 10, in fact, the rejection has nothing to do with you. For example, someone rejects you for your business services. They may just feel like it's not a good fit, but sometimes it's just not the right time. They're not ready to do business with you. They're not ready to invest in you. They're not at a place where they feel like they can, or maybe they don't understand your offer. Maybe they don't get what you're trying to do. Any of those things can apply, and you can take it personally and get upset about it, or you can keep moving forward, chucking ahead and doing the best that you can. What I recommend doing is just being gentle. It's just being honest with yourself and loving yourself. That has been the key that has helped me to start handling rejection better. I tell myself that I love myself every day and that I like myself every day. I I basically have chosen to stop rejecting myself, because I discovered that this is one of the keys to rejection. A lot of the time, the reason rejection stings so much is because we're hoping that somebody else is going to accept us and like us. Well, guess what? Not everyone is going to accept you. Not everyone's going to like you. And if you're seeking validation from other people, then chances are you aren't looking for it from yourself. And you need to look for it from yourself. If you don't look for it from yourself, people, it doesn't matter like how many people do like you, or care about you or anything else. It's never going to be enough. And that right there is a hard thing to face. I mean, a lot of times people are like, well, if I'm, and this is a nice guy thing, if I do this just right, then I will get what I want. I'll get the sex that I want. I'll get the raise that I want. Well, guess no, you won't. It doesn't matter. What matters is how you show up and how authentic you are. And a lot of times when you're being a nice person, either a nice guy or a nice girl, you're not being authentic. You are trying to fit into what you think other people want, and you're hoping that they'll accept you. And when they don't, you take it even harder because you're like, well, if I did X, Y, and Z, this should have led to X, Y, and this should have led to this result. This is what we call a covert contract. And we'll talk more about covert contracts in other videos. But at the end of the day, it boils down to this: you can take things personally, or you can choose to accept that, in fact, you don't have to take things personally. I choose not to. I am choosing to learn how not to take things personally. Because I had an epiphany. I had an epiphany, and I actually had this epiphany literally yesterday at the time of this video. I had a situation in my life where I'm dealing with a lot of rejection right now, and I finally came to a realization. I realized this isn't about me. This is about the other person. This is about that person's anger, their anxiety, whatever else. This isn't about me, and I don't have to take it personally. I can choose to stop taking it personally because it's not a rejection of me. I just happen to be the person that this person can reject safely. I happen to be the person this person can say no to. I happen to be the person that this person can in some ways kind of be able to express themselves in a way that perhaps they haven't been able to express themselves before. And I made the decision not to tolerate the rejection. I'm not going to tolerate it. But I made the decision I'm not going to take this personally. I'm not going to take this personally. I'm going to see it for what it is. That this really isn't about me. That the rejection more often than not is really not about you at all. And that if you learn to not take it personally and if you love and like yourself enough, then then getting rejected won't matter. Because you will be able to come at things from a place of inner masculine strength or inner feminine strength. I mean, depending on I mean, for most of the people I assume watching this are men, but if you're a woman watching this, inner feminine strength, or other gender identify, like however you identify, whatever that core is for you, you can come at it from that place of strength and love and self acceptance. Because when you genuinely love yourself, at the end of the day, yeah, you may not be getting everything that you want. You may not be experiencing some of the experiences that you want to have, but you can also be like, okay, well, I accept that this is where I'm at. I accept this is the relationship. This is the relationship that this person has around these things, but it has very little to do with me. I just happen to be the person that they're saying no to. And I can take that personally, or I can say, okay, well, I got that no. All right, move on. Move on to the next person, or move on in some other way. But don't let yourself take it personally, because rejection at the end of the day is really not about you. Rejection is about that person's relationship with whatever it is that they're rejecting. And sometimes it boils down to they're just not ready to do business with you. Sometimes it boils down to other things. Sometimes it boils down to deep-seated issues that they're dealing with, trauma or whatever else. And this is no reflection upon them either. That's just where they're at. And in fact, if I can detach from rejection, I can actually accept that person where they are at a lot more easily. And that actually helps me remove myself from the situation from a place of that person having power over me. And it's not that I'm trying to have power over that person. No, it's not that at all. It's rather that I'm able to say, you know what? You don't have power over me anymore. I'm not going to take this so personally. I'm not going. I'll acknowledge that I may feel hurt. I'll acknowledge that I may feel sad. I'll acknowledge that I may feel angry. But I can look at those emotions and realize they are not the totality of my being, and I can detach from them and accept the situation with equanimity. And then I can move forward and be like, okay, I'm going to go on with my life and live my best life and do what I need to do for myself. Is this easy work? No. Is it important work? Yes. And take it from me, when you learn how to not take rejection so personally, This is how you start persevering in life because you're going to stick with what really matters to you. You're going to stick with what you really want out of your life because you're going to know what you want. You're going to know, I want to move forward with my life in a very real and powerful way. You're going to know, I'm ready to accept this life and where I'm at, and I'm ready to move forward in a powerful, meaningful manner. And I'm ready to keep going after those clients. I'm ready to keep writing that book. I'm ready to keep asking other people out on dates, or I'm ready to accept that this situation is what it is and I can't change this person's mind, but what I can do is I can take care of myself. And that's really one of the keys for dealing with rejection. It's one of the keys for discovering your own masculine strength because you start to learn what you start to tolerate less as a result when you detach because you're like, okay, I don't need to tolerate this either because some part of you is tolerating it, being like, well, if if I stick around long enough, or if I do this long enough, eventually they'll change. Well, not necessarily. You have no guarantee of that. And the fact of the matter is, you can't force somebody else to change. You can, I mean, not in a way that's going to give you what you genuinely want. But if you love yourself and accept yourself and like yourself, what you can do is be there for yourself. And you can choose to live an empowering life where you experience the joys of life and the sorrows of life, but you move forward and you keep pursuing what really matters to you. You don't settle for less. You don't stay in the zone of comfortable discomfort. Instead, you're like, I am moving forward. That is the key element to the work that you're doing, and it is what transforms your life. So I urge you today to really accept and recognize that maybe you are feeling rejected around some area of your life. Take a step back and ask yourself, do I need to take this so personally? Is this really about me? Because more often than not, it isn't about you. And if it is about you, then use that as an opportunity to take a critical look at yourself and ask yourself, well, what could I do differently? And again, this isn't about punishing yourself. It's not about forcing yourself to fit into what somebody else wants. It's about loving yourself enough to stick through with what's important to you. Now, again, if you've just come to this video, you happen to be watching this, if you stuck around long enough, please subscribe and please go ahead and like and share and comment on this video. Tell me about your experiences with rejection and check out the Sacred Masculine Quest. This is a free booklet that you can get that walks you through how to start empowering yourself as a man in your life because more than ever, we need strong, empowered men who are able to step up and show up in the way that this world needs from a place of compassion, awareness, and self-love because that is what leads us forward in our work.